Hey, what's going on? Axel here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about healing strategies. This is my first strategy type video. My previous 4 or 5 videos have all been gameplay videos, and I'll probably do a lot more gameplay videos than I will strategy videos like this. But today I want to talk a little bit about healing because not that I feel I'm the best healer in DDO, but I've been playing Clerics pretty much exclusively for 5 or 6 years in this game, and I just wanted to throw out some tips that I've picked up along the way. Hopefully beginners who hear this will get some good tips, and also vets who hear this might hear a thing or two they haven't heard before that might help them out as well. So I'm going to talk about 6 different things in this video. I'm going to start with supplies that you should bring as a healer, what you should always have on you. I'm going to talk then about prestige abilities, and specifically which ones you should be using and which one are helpful and which ones you should be using in each situation that you might find yourself in. Third, I'm going to talk about spells, which spells are the most important, which ones you should use first, which ones are the most SP efficient spells to use, and which ones are better for certain situations. Fourth, I'm going to talk about destiny abilities. Same thing as spells. I'm going to talk about which ones are useful and what situations, which one you should twist in, which ones you should have loaded at all times, and which ones may not be particularly useful. Fifth, I'm going to talk about single target healing or tank healing, and then sixth, I'm going to finish with group healing, which will include both healing in a regular 6-man party and healing in a 12-man raid situation. So first of all, supplies. There are a few things as a cleric, favored soul, divine, healer, whatever class you are. Normally, most people usually choose cleric if they want to play a healer type, but favored souls also are great healers, as well as druids, and even other classes like bards can be really good healers too. But there's a few things that if you want to play the healer role that you should carry. First of all, you always want to carry multiple stacks of heal scrolls, and these aren't too expensive. I think it's around 16,000 plat for a stack of 100. At first, if you're a new player, you might not be able to afford this, and you can't use heal scrolls I think until around levels 11 or 12 with a good success rate. But you want to have heal scrolls around because it will provide you with backup healing when your SP runs dry, and also you can just use them intermittently to save spell points when you can. Second thing you should always bring, you don't have to bring a full stack, but you should always have extra resurrection or raise dead scrolls. And some of you might think, well, I'm a cleric, I'm a divine, I'm a favored soul, whatever. I already have the spell raise dead or the spell resurrection. Why do I need scrolls? And the answer is, when you're in a raid or group situation, you might run into some tough spots where you run out of SP. And even though you're out of SP, you still need to be able to heal the party and raise the party from the dead. So when you're out of SP, you will need to rely on resurrection scrolls to get people up. Third thing you need to carry, I'm not one to carry a lot of these, but you need to carry some spell point potions. I normally carry around 5, maybe 10 at any one time. I'm not a big spell point pot chugger, but you need to have them for the tough situations where a pot or two might make the difference between wiping and succeeding in the quest or raid. Next, and actually probably the most important, are your spell components. You want to make sure that you always have enough stacks of spell components for your spells. And luckily, as a divine, you won't run through them as much as an arcane, especially if you're a melee divine, because you won't be using offensive spell casting as much. So what I like to do, as you can see right here in my inventory, I keep all my spell components right here in the first tab. That lets me keep an eye on them easily. Some people like to put them in a hotbar. I don't like to do that because it clutters up my view screen, and I think it's a little unnecessary. But as long as I keep them here in my first tab, I can keep an eye on them so I can tell when I'm running low. Right now I'm actually in house K right now because I need to buy some more level 8 spell components. I'm almost out. Next, one thing that you might want to bring with you is curse potions. Now everyone in the party is, first of all, is responsible to cure their own curses. But, you know, there's tough situations where someone might run out, someone might be tanking, someone might be tripped, for whatever reason, they might not be able to remove a curse on themselves. So in that case, you want to have some potions, and make sure they're not the guild potions from House K, because those are self-use only. But other potions, you can actually select another party member and click the potion, and it will remove their curse. And the last thing that you may want to bring, but this is probably low levels, not so much high levels, wands can be useful. Cure wands early. Now this is in very low levels, maybe levels 1 to 10. They can be useful if you're a new player and you don't have very much plat. Wands are a lot more efficient as far as the amount of casts you get for your platinum spent, but they cast very slow, which is why I don't typically use them ever after heal scrolls become available. But before you can use heal scrolls on a regular basis, before you get that high level to where you can use them, wands are good to carry as backup healing. So that about covers the supplies you're going to need. So let's move on to part 2, which is prestige abilities. And I'm going to bring up, well, I don't want to zoom in. I'm going to bring up my enhancement tree for this. Okay, as a cleric, and I'm not going to talk about the other divine classes or other healing classes like druids and bards. I'm just going to talk about clerics specifically. The prestige abilities that are very helpful are, for turns of healers, your two most important ones are going to be your bursts, which are right here, which I believe you need cleric level 6. So level 6 you can get this right here, positive energy burst, and your positive energy aura, which is tier 5. Now all clerics may not take this. If you're a caster cleric and you're going for really good offensive casting, you might take the tier 5 in Divine Disciple. I would strongly recommend you take this tier 5 instead of the tier 5 in War Priest. I'm not a fan of the War Priest tree for melee clerics, and I will make a whole different video talking about that. I'm not going to get into it right now, but I'm not a huge fan of War Priest other than splashing for a few things that you see here. But anyways, back on topic. Your most important prestige enhancements, as I said, are your aura and your bursts. Now your aura, you want to have this on during fights. For melee cleric, now the aura is a lot more effective for melee clerics than it is for your caster clerics, because melee clerics are around the melees, who are typically the ones who need healing a lot more. Now, if I activate my aura, as you can see, luckily there's a guy here I can test with. If I'm up here fighting, say we're in front of a mob right now, I can attack the mob and heal him at the same time. And that's really obvious, I know, but one thing you might not realize is just how big the range is. See, look how far away I am. The animation ends here, but actually he's still being healed. It has quite a distance, and it actually has the same range as your burst. So that's gonna heal him right there too. So it has quite a range. See, I'm still healing him actually. Let's see how far I can go. And I'm still ticking him. People don't realize just how big the range is. And I should be just about out of, okay, now I'm out of the range. But see, even this far away, I can still burst the guy. So aura is, you want it on basically for passive healing. Throughout your heroic questing, typically your aura is going to be enough to keep people up. You just turn it on and forget about healing, and that's all you got to worry about. So always have it on, and you want to take advantage of this, especially as a melee cleric. It's so much more effective because you're near the melee so much more than a caster. So You should always have it on as a melee during fights. And bursts, your bursts are what you want to use. You want to go to, they're your first go-to heal to use, assuming everyone's in range, if your aura is not doing the job, if it's not keeping everyone up. So, and this is 95% of your questing. You'll just have your aura on, you'll go into the fight. If someone's hit point starts to drop to a dangerous level, you just throw a burst, and that fixes the problem. Now, aura and burst, these need to be your go-to healing, and the reason they need to be your go-to healing is because they're free. They don't cost spell points, they recharge, and when you get up to a higher level, like I'm level 22 right now and I have 23 turns, you'll get plenty of turns, so you typically won't run out. But what using these abilities first lets you do is save your SP for both maybe a little bit of casting, a little bit of self-healing, but it lets you save them for a really tough situation. Now say you're running a really easy quest on Epic Normal or something, you might not need to be that SP efficient, but in general you want to have that attitude of always using your prestige enhancements first because they are the most SP efficient. The other ability, which I did not mention yet, because, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the War Priest tree for clerics, is Immolating Strike. I don't know how you pronounce it. I might have butchered that. But, oops, wrong one. Let's bring this up so I can talk about it and show you where it's at. Ami Strike is right here. And this is very similar to the Burst, except it's much less reliable, which is why I don't like it. It's a offensive attack, which when it strikes the enemy, it makes a burst effect, basically does a radiant burst upon hitting the enemy. I don't like it, and I don't use it. I don't take it because it's not reliable. If you miss the enemy, it doesn't go off, and typically you're overhealing with it. You can't really use it. Typically, you already have burst, right? So it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to use it because it's so unreliable. It's just an unreliable burst. Okay, next tip. I want to make sure everyone, a lot of new players don't realize this. I know vets will, this is ABC stuff for vets, if any vets are watching this, but you always want to make sure that your meta magics are toggled on, and your meta magics are your feats such as Empower, Heal, and Maximize. And to make sure they're always on, you go to your hotbar, and this is where my aura is. You right click and it'll show your meta magics, and you just want to make sure you have the always on checked, because what that'll do is apply your meta magics always to your radiant aura and your radiant burst for free. Okay, next I'm going to talk about spells and destiny abilities. Let's start with spells, and I'll open up the spell list and just go through what I feel are the most important spells for a healer. And, okay, the first kind of mass cure you get, besides your aura and burst. Now, as I said before, your aura and burst are need to be your go-to. You don't go to your spells unless you have to because they're not free. You've got your mass cures, which you get at every level, starting at level, I believe, is it? Yeah, I think it's, yeah, starting at level 5. You have Cure Light, Cure Moderate, and Cure Serious. The advantage of mass cures is they're fast, but their big disadvantage is they're very SP intensive. They're very expensive SP wise, and they're not very efficient. Mass cures basically should always be your last resort just because they are so SP inefficient. You should always go to your other more efficient spells first. And the most efficient spell as far as mass healing goes is the mass heal spell. Now I don't have it on this guy because he's actually only level 15 cleric. You have to have a level 17 cleric in order to get mass heal. But that's basically the heal spell which you get here except applied to multiple targets. And the mass heal spell is basically a cure that is very SP efficient and heals for a lot. See, mine hits me for way more than I actually, many more hit points than I actually have. But your mass cure is, your mass heal, I'm sorry, is what your go-to heal should be when your Mass Cure, when your Radiant Burst and Aura aren't healing the group. The advantage of Mass Heal is it will pretty much fill the health bar of everyone in the area that you target. The disadvantage is it's very slow. Its cast time is very, very slow, so you often have to cast it before the damage happens to your party members. It takes 3 to 4 seconds to activate. And I'll just talk about Mass Heal for a little bit. Mass Heal used to be a big deal back in the day. Back when Cap was 20, a lot of the raids were raids that relied on group healing. There was usually one big boss where all the melees huddled around it, so Mass Heal was very helpful. But nowadays, it's not that helpful. It's an okay spell, but you typically don't need it. Most of the raids now, the newer raids, are all single target healing. So I don't even take 17 Cleric levels anymore on my healer. But I'll get to that later when I talk about raid and group healing. Let's get to some Destiny abilities. The most important ones for a healer are Rejuvenation Cocoon. And let me just open this real quick. Rejuvenation Cocoon is in the Primal Avatar Destiny right here. The advantages of Rejuvenation Cocoon, and you should always have this, you should have this slotted if you're in healing mode. Now I normally don't have it slotted if I'm just in DPS mode with my Cleric. It's because I don't need it unless I'm playing the healer role. But if you're playing the healer role, you should have it because of a couple reasons. One, it's very SP efficient. You can apply the meta magics to it for free, but the main reason you want it is the spell has no range. Now, I don't know if this is working as intended. I would guess it's not, but it's been out for quite a while now, a couple years, and they have never fixed it. So until they do, I'm going to recommend everyone take Rejuvenation Cocoon, that you twist it in on your healer. So your other most important ability is, well, one of your other more important abilities is Renewal. And if I can find the Sentinel, there we go. The Sentinel Destiny is, by the way, I'll talk about that in just a minute when I get to raid healing and party healing, but it's the Destiny you're going to want to use if you're going to play a straight healer. Alright, Renewal right here, and Renewal is massively underrated. It basically works like Rejuvenation Cocoon. It's a heal over time spell, and I actually didn't explain Rejuvenation Cocoon well enough, but Rejuvenation Cocoon gives you 150 temporary HP to the target and also renews their HP for a few seconds while the 150 temporary hit points are still there. And Renewal works sort of the same way, except you don't get temporary HP from it, but it does heal over time. And its huge advantage is just its mind-blowing effectiveness and healing per SP spent. It only costs 5 spell points. So you can cast this literally probably 3, if you have a good SP bar, you can cast it like 400 times before you run out of SP. The thing is just so useful for tank healing. It's ridiculous. It's the best tank healing spell because you can just spam this thing every 7 seconds if you're dedicated to healing a tank, and it will often keep the tank's health up without you having to use more SP costly spells. Another really helpful ability is your Consecrated Ground, which is in the Divine Crusader Destiny. It is, let me see, right here, well, it has 3 tiers, but the healing part of it is what we're talking about for this video. It works as basically an area of effect heal. So basically it lays down a circle around your character, and everyone within that circle is healed for, I think it lasts around 10, how long does it last? I don't remember the exact time, but 15 seconds. So 15 seconds, everyone in that circle is healed over time. And also some other nice perks where if you take Crusade, it increases the damage by 10%. But it's very useful as an ability for healing when you're in a small room or when you're at a boss. But the disadvantage of it is it can be a little costly in spell points, not too bad, but it is stationary. It doesn't move with you like your aura does. So once you lay it down, if people move out of the circle, they are no longer being healed. And that's why it's really only useful in small rooms or against bosses. Okay, I think that's about it. I think I've covered all the Destiny abilities. Let's go on to tank healing, and I'll actually talk a little bit about these spells and how you should use them and what I think is the best strategy for healing tanks. First of all, if you're going to play a party healer, and this is assuming that you're taking the healer role that your raid leader has asked you to be the healer for the raid, and often in today's game, bring your own heals is often the case, but not always. So this is assuming that the raid leader has asked you to dedicate yourself to healing over DPS, because I normally run in Crusader Destiny, but if I'm asked to be the healer, I will run in the Sentinel Destiny, and in my opinion, the Sentinel Destiny is the Destiny for healing now, for a couple of reasons. One reason, as well, I didn't mention this before, but unless you're in Sentinel, you cannot target yourself with renewal, and I guess that's not a huge deal, but that as long as you could twist it in and be in another Destiny, you'll still be able to heal tanks, but it's a perk, and there's other reasons for you to be in Sentinel. Big reason is the survivability. All these tiers here in Sentinel give you a lot of extra HP. You've got enhancements for more maximum hit points. You've got an epic moment that gives you 1,000 HP. You've got general fort increases. You've got defensive increases here. Just things that help you stay alive. But the big impact is the huge amount of HP you get from it. You get a couple hundred HP just for being in this Destiny. So definitely go Sentinel. And I recommend Sentinel for survivability and for renewal. I recommend twisting in a couple different things. See, this is normally my setup. Well, I don't normally have Cocoon in there, but I was playing a little healer earlier, so I have it in there right now. But for a healer, I would swap in Rejuvenation Cocoon for sure. And I recommend you there's an ability here in the Exalted Angel tree where it increases your spell point pool by 10% and allows Echoes of Power to boost you to 30 spell points. So Echoes of Power means if your spell points go to 0, you'll rejuvenate now to 30, and that can be helpful, but the main thing is this will let you heal for longer. So go ahead and twist this in. And again, I normally wouldn't advocate increasing your spell point pool. I would never twist this in unless I'm playing healer, because you normally will have more SP than you know what to do with, but just for the reasons of playing healer, you should twist it in. So I like doing that. I like Rejuvenation Cocoon, and there's a couple in the last. Those are the only two things I very strongly recommend, and for the other tier, you can kind of take whatever you feel. You might want to take, let's see, you could take this Draconic ability I like, which gives you +6 to your reflex save. There's a couple nice things in, I think you might want to twist Consecration here in Crusader. Just up to you. But your main strategy, assuming you're tank healing, is first of all, you want to be aware of where the damage is coming from and make sure you're in a safe spot. And once you spot the tank and you find a nice place to stay, and you might not have one spot you can stay in, there's certain raids like Fall of Truth where you need to find the perfect spot to heal, but other raids like Temple of Deathworm, you probably will be running around with like a chicken with its head cut off, so you're not taking damage. But anyways, when you have a tank to heal, what I like to do is do a cycle of 3 spells. And before I talk about that, let me talk about Aura and Burst healing. When you're tank healing, normally you can't use your Aura and Burst, because if you get that close to the tank, you're going to die. If you're in a situation where the group is using a tank, then you're probably not going to be able to get close to them and stay alive. I mean, why would you have a tank if you can survive right near the tank? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. If it's something like Fall of Truth, you're going to want to stay away because the dragon or the boss is dangerous and it's either going to kill you or incapacitate you or trip you or whatnot. So Aura and Burst are kind of off the table here when tank healing. So what you want to resort to is abilities that will keep the tank healed, but do it in the most SP efficient way possible. And my favorite thing to do is to cycle between 3 abilities. And these 3 abilities are 3 I've talked about. Rejuvenation Cocoon. Well, I closed the window, but Rejuvenation Cocoon is 1, Renewal is 2, and Heal Scrolls are 3. And you want to start with, probably with Renewal. You can, because it's so cheap. You want to constantly spam Renewal, which lasts about 7 seconds. And if that doesn't keep the tank up, throw a Heal Scroll every once in a while. So you can, if you can use just those 2 abilities if that's all the damage the tank is taking. So just throw a Renewal and throw Heal Scrolls, and you're only going to use 5 spell points per cycle, just cycling those two abilities. And that's going to let you heal the tank for a long time. One big mistake that new players make is they cast in extreme they either tank heal or group heal in an extremely SP inefficient way. They'll just sit there and use the heal spell, which is incredibly stupid. You should never use the heal spell unless you absolutely have to. You have so many SP efficient abilities at your disposal that you should use unless it's just not possible. The heal spell is your oh crap heal. That's what you heal people with when they're low and they take a lot of burst damage and you have to throw them something immediately. But for tank healing, you want to cycle through Renewal and Heal Scrolls. And that's it. Now, sometimes the tank is going to take too much damage to where Renewal and Heal Scrolls alone isn't going to keep up with it. Now, Heal Scrolls can be a little slow, and Renewal might not be regenerating his health fast enough. So if that's the case, you throw in your next most SP efficient ability, which is going to be Rejuvenation Cocoon. And Rejuvenation Cocoon, which also regens over time, as does Renewal, those stack. The healing stacks. One doesn't cancel out the other. So if you can cast Cocoon and Renewal constantly, you'll have a nice constant regen from the tank, not to mention your 150 temporary HP you're giving him. So that combined with Heal Scrolls pretty much will always keep the tank up. I mean, if you're running some epic elite raids, it may not, but just cycling through Renewal, Heal Scroll, Cocoon, Renewal, Heal Scroll, Cocoon is going to get you through most situations. Now, if you're in a hard epic elite situation, like I mentioned, you're going to have to resort to your actual spells because there's no other abilities that you can use other than those 3 that are SP efficient. You might have to resort to your heal spell, which is unfortunate. You can also carry, well, that's about it. I mean, you really are out of options at that point. If those 3 aren't keeping them up, you gotta go to your heal spell, and you may have to chug pots, unfortunately. But luckily, that's normally not the case. And you also might have, if there's someone available who can help you with healing, so you don't have to burn through your SP by casting costly spells like heal, you can do that as well. Alright, I think that about covers my basic strategy for tank healing. So basically your main goal with tank healing is you want to make yourself last as long as possible. And as you can see, my clerics don't have tons of spell points because I don't find it necessary. If you heal in an efficient way, you don't need many spell points. I mean, I've never, even when the cap was 20, my cleric only had 1,500 spell points, and I was regularly healing Shroud groups solo. It's not hard if you just do things efficiently. But let's move on to group healing and raid group healing. Let's move away from single target healing and tank healing. With group healing, I recommend twisting in the same abilities: Renewal, Heal Scroll, and Cocoon. The difference with group healing instead of single target or tank healing is that it's not near as possible. It's not possible to be as SP efficient as you can be with single target healing, because you're going to be forced to use your group spells like Mass Cures and Mass Heal. So these are raids like Chronoscope, the Shroud, Von 6, stuff like that, the older raids where people are grouped up at the end. You're basically going to have to stand back and just use these group healing spells. Now if you have 17 Cleric, which I don't, because these raids just aren't run much anymore, and often even on Epic Elite they're easy enough when you have level 28 characters that people don't need a lot of healing. But if you're in a situation where people do need a lot of healing, maybe you're running on a heroic or something, or maybe you're running it out level with a group, you're basically going to have to stand in the back, and you're going to have to use your Mass Heal as your go-to. And with Mass Heal, you don't want to just sit in the back and mash it. You want to look at the health bars. You want to cast it when the health bars get to about, I would say about 60% or so. With Mass Heal, you have to predict the damage, but the catch is you can't just mash it because you're going to run out of your SP. So you want to use your Mass Heal, and this is of course assuming you can't use your Aura and Burst. If you can use your Aura and Burst, by all means, run up next to the group, turn on your Aura, and just use Aura and Burst to heal. But if you can't, you're going to have to stand back and use your Mass Heal. You can also mix in some single target healing. Say you just have one player that may have lower HP than the others. Maybe you have 6 players that have 900 HP and one that has 600, and the one with 600 is taking damage a little too fast, getting a little bit too close to 0. You might have to target him with some single heart stuff, maybe Renewal, maybe Cocoon, while your Mass Heal is on cooldown. Or option B, you might have to just let him die. One thing about group healing is if you're healing 5 or 6 melees and they're up near a raid boss, and one has a lot less HP than the others, you're probably going to have to let him die because you're going to burn through your SP like crazy trying to keep him up. And the goal here is for you to complete the raid. It's not to keep everyone alive when it's not possible. And if you burn through all your SP trying to keep this one guy up, and then you run out and everybody dies, then it's going to be a little bit your fault for the raid failing. Now, assuming you're expected to be the healer, and that's one bad thing about a healer. I mean, you get people often blame you, and now I wouldn't ever blame it. It's never your fault solely if the raid heals, but people can accuse you of it. So you got to have tough skin sometimes, and just be smart. Let's see. A couple other notes I want to say. One thing I didn't mention about tank healing or single target healing is I talked a lot about tank healing. I didn't talk particularly about single target healing outside of tank healing, which is pretty much the same. You just want to run like a chicken with your head cut off around to avoid damage, and just single target hit people with Renewal or Cocoon or Heal Scrolls. Basically cycle through those 3, except the only difference between that single target healing and tank healing is you're obviously going to have to target different people. Okay. 2 other little tips I want to slide in here at the end. I didn't mention that I talk about this, but 2 other tips are I want to talk about hotbar setup and mouse look mode. Now let's talk about mouse look mode at first. Now there's 2 ways to play DDO. The way I'm playing it right now, as you can see, my mouse is free, so I'm using this I can select myself, I can select spells on my hotbar, or I could hit the T key and it gives me this little circle in the middle, and this lets my mouse control my point of view. Now in a lot of classes, actually pretty much most classes other than healers, you can run in this mode, and a lot of people prefer it, people who have played first-person shooters and games similar. But on a healer, I highly recommend that you do not run in mouse look mode. You run with your mouse free, because right here all the names of your party are going to show up, and you're going to need to click on their names and then in order to target them. And there is another way you can do this. You can do this with the F1 through F12 keys, but I recommend not doing that, because while you can reach a couple of the F keys, depending on your keyboard with ease, you're not going to be able to reach all of them reliably, and your reactions in general to healing are just going to be much slower than if you just had your mouse, you could click on the names. Because you might see player number 8 in your party, and it's much easier to just click on the name than have to think about which key do I need to hit, and then hit the key and then heal. You're just going to have, in my opinion, and from my experiences, you're going to have a lot better reaction times if you do not use the F1 through F12 keys, if you use your mouse clicks. Okay, like I said, the last thing I want to talk about is hotbar setup. Now, people have different opinions on this, but I use basically 10 hotkeys. I don't try to use more because I feel like it's going to overcomplicate things. I want my setup to be easy enough to where I don't have to think too much about what spells or what abilities I'm using. I slot my 1 key through my 5 key right here with these abilities. As you can see, my mouse at the bottom of the screen. I keep my burst at 1, and primarily my attacks at 3, 4, and 5, and the heal spell at 2. I also keep the aura at 0. Some people might keep it differently, but I don't feel a need to keep my aura right here on my hotbars, because my hotbars are either going to be abilities that you use often or abilities that you need to access right away. Like, I don't use the heal spell too often unless I have to, or unless I have so much SP it doesn't matter, then I'll just heal myself with heal. And I'm talking about situations where I'm on easy runs or something where I know we're not going to get tough spots, so I don't worry about being SP efficient. But I think you should keep the burst at 1 because it's a very quick heal. You can also keep heal at 1, but typically your 1, 2, and 3 keys, your 1 and 2 keys are going to be the fastest keys to hit, typically, for me anyways, 1, 2, and 3. So I like to keep these 2 abilities, burst and heal, on my hotbar right here. Because these are the 2 abilities when I need to be healed now, or I need to heal someone now, or I need to heal the group now. These are going to give me the best reaction time because they're going to be the easiest to reach. And here I get to my cleave attacks. A lot of people don't like to spam cleaves, but I'm a cleave spammer, so I keep these here. And these aren't abilities I'm always going to have to use right now, but I use them constantly, which is why I have them on my 3, 4, and 5 keys. Now you're going to want, now I have 5 other keys which I use, which are shifts. So shift 1 uses consecration, shift 2 I have on heal scrolls, shift 3 I have on cocoon, shift 4 I have mass cure critical. If I had mass heal, but I don't because I'm not a 17 cleric, but if I was a 17 cleric and I had mass heal, I would have it in this spot. And then I alternate my 5th spot, but right now I have blade barrier. You want to have your heals here within reach. I like having cocoon at 3 and consecration at 1, and I use these abilities not near as often as my bursts, but they need to be easily accessible because they're used often. And if you're cycling through heals, especially in a raiding situation, you want these abilities to be close. The same with mass cure critical. I almost never use this, but I carry it on my hotbar at shift 4 because there are those tough situations where I need to get to this mass cure spell now. My party might be dropping to 0 and my burst might be on cooldown. If my burst is on cooldown and people are in danger, I'm going to have to hit my mass cure. There's an old guildie just waving to me. Okay, so that covers hotbar setups. This is what I recommend putting your abilities at. Obviously, if I was in a raiding situation, I'd probably drop blade barrier and put renewal here, but just set it up how you like it. Play around with different keys, different spots. I like the shift 1 through 5 and the 1 through 5 keys, but if you like, maybe you want to add a 3rd row here and use the caps lock key in combination with the 1 through 5, or maybe you feel comfortable, maybe you have big hands and you feel comfortable going to a 6. You can do that too. Just the main thing I want you to take out of this hotkey part is just make sure that you organize your abilities in terms of the ones you need to use now. Tough situations need to be the easiest to access. And then after your emergency abilities, you need to have your most commonly used abilities at your next most closest spots. Okay. Well, I hope that this video helped you. And again, I don't claim to be the expert on healing or anything, but I have been doing it for a while, and I'm hoping that these tips will help both beginners and, like I said, I hope vets to watch this and get a few things out of it. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I will have more strategy videos coming out and a lot more gameplay videos too. So again, appreciate for watching, and see you next time.